Hello, it's John Heaton, and this evening I've had a request to review the Revolver album from the Beatles by Gaza in Melbourne, Australia. How are you doing? So, I'm going to do it. We just celebrated a couple of months ago the 50th anniversary of Rubber Soul, and in August of this year, this album will be 50 years old. Believe it or not. I'd actually mislaid my vinyl copy from my collection, so I picked up this copy, which is actually an Indian pressing. It's on nice, heavyweight 180 vinyl by the feel of it, and it's in very good condition. Looks like a first or maybe second pressing. It's a stereo copy. And, well, this album was a breakthrough. I mean, even in comparison to Rubber Soul, which was a breakthrough in itself in terms of style. This album just took it to the next level, and I can only imagine what it must have been like being a fan at the time, seeing the Beatles come up with these new albums every year from '65 onwards was just basically a quantum leap versus the previous one. So Rubber Soul was top-notch in terms of songs and developing their songwriting style, and some superb acoustic stuff like Nowhere Man, more like Girl and In My Life, Norwegian Wood. And this album is more electric, that's the first word I would use, preceded by the single Paperback Writer Rain, which came out in June of '66, a couple of months before this, which paved the way for the album in terms of both songs being very heavy on the electric guitar and being pretty psychedelic, which is actually the second word I would use to describe this album, because some of the sounds they get on here are just groundbreaking. I mean, John, Tomorrow Never Knows, which closes the album, is basically just one note. Very simple tune, with lyrics inspired by Timothy Leary's, forget what the book's called, Book of the Dead or something. But a hypnotic drumming from Ringo, and great special effects in the background, backwards guitar, which is also heard on I'm Only Sleeping, which is another very dreamy psychedelic song from John, which he would actually do a similar song on the White Album, I'm So Tired, which is probably even better. But this was very interesting, must have been very interesting at the time when it came out. John's other songs are decent. The thing about this album is quite a few of the songs are not that well known, because from this album, I think only 2 songs made it onto the Red 62 to 66 compilation, and they were the single Eleanor Rigby, Yellow Submarine. And actually those 2 songs have probably been somewhat overexposed over the years, because Paul has played Eleanor Rigby in concert about 1 million times, and ditto with Ringo, Yellow Submarine. We don't really need to. I think it's true of this album that I don't think I've heard any of the songs on this album performed live by any of the solo Beatles anything like to the standard that they are on this album. And I don't know why that is, and I include, Paul attempted to do a couple of tracks on Good My Regards to Broad Street, didn't work. I think George has done I Want to Tell You live. But I think the place to hear these songs is right here on the original album. Brilliant cover design by Klaus Voormann, drawings of all 4 Beatles here. And, starts off with Taxman, which is probably George's best song to date. A storming opener with a superb guitar solo from Paul and tremendous musicianship from all 4. So anyone who was doubting George's songwriting abilities must have been very pleasantly surprised with this track. Then Eleanor Rigby is next, and as I say, heard it too much over the years maybe. It was in the Yellow Submarine film, and it's been played a lot on the radio. But the original version with the Vivaldi type strings, just revolutionary, and just a masterpiece. I think John did help with some of the words. Maybe George contributed a line or two. It's mainly Paul's baby, but as John said, he helped with the education of the child. I think that's how he put it. I think if anyone is on top form songwriting-wise on this album, and I mean really top form, I mean a peak of their entire career, it would be Paul McCartney, because he contributes 5 songs. And I don't think I can name many songs which are better than the 5 he contributes to this album. So not only do you have Eleanor Rigby, you have Here, There and Everywhere, which is more or less the perfect ballad. You have For No One, again, perfect ballad, beautiful piano, beautiful melody, Good Day Sunshine, very uplifting mid-tempo song, and then Got to Get You Into My Life, which was apparently an ode to Pot. Very infectious horns, and just a brilliant. I mean, so those 5 songs. I mean, I can't really think that Paul reached that standard again on an album. Maybe on Abbey Road he comes close with the side 2 medley, etc. But this is up there among his best work. And then with John's songs, I mean, Tomorrow Never Knows, revolutionary, and Your Bird Can Sing. Maybe as a song it's not totally brilliant, but the performance with the electric guitar and the bass from Paul, and it's just brilliant. And then there's a marvellous version of this on the anthology where Paul is uncontrollably in a fit of giggles. Superb. Dr. Robert, another very amusing song about a doctor in New York who could get them anything. Brilliant, not very well known, great. And then She Said is, again, as a song, not much, but the sound they get is huge. And George, brilliant electric guitar with John, brilliant drumming from Ringo, whose drumming on the Rain song, the B-side of Paperback Writer, is amongst the best of his career. His drumming on She Said is brilliant. I've probably covered most of the tracks here. I mean, George contributes also I Want to Tell You, which is decent, if not one of his best, and Love You Too, which is probably the weakest song on the album, but it's not bad, fits in with the overall mood. And then Ringo sings Yellow Submarine, which was written by Paul, which again probably been played a little bit too much over the years. So this is the UK version, 14 tracks. The US version we won't talk about because that left out 3 of John's tracks and made it very Paul and George heavy. So this album, what have I missed out? Oh yeah, later in the year they came out with this album, which was a collection of oldies but goldies. It's the first actual album I remember in my recollection of getting into the Beatles. It was lying around in Wimbledon at my parents' house, and great introduction to the group, and it included the song Bad Boy, which has appeared in the US the previous year. Covers a bit naff or dated, but it's quite amusing. Great picture on the back, which I think is from their Japan tour. So the interesting thing about this Revolver album is they were still touring when this album came out, and I think I'm right in saying that they didn't play one of these songs live on stage. I think they performed Paperback Writer, the single from a couple of months earlier. I think that was performed live, but not one of these songs could be satisfactorily reproduced on stage. So pretty soon after this album came out, they quit touring and went into the studio and produced more masterpieces such as Pepper, White Album, Abbey Road, which are covered in other videos. So thanks for watching. And that 10 out of 10, by the way, in case you were wondering. See you next time.